the sensory matrix. Reality begins not outside of you, but inside your mind. Everything you experience, the light from a lamp, the sound of footsteps, the texture of a surface, is not the world itself, but your brain's interpretation of electrical signals. The eyes, ears, tongue, nose, and skin do not deliver the world as it is. They deliver fragments, light waves, air vibrations, and molecular traces that your brain must translate into something coherent. Vision, for instance, begins as light bouncing off objects, entering your eye, and striking the retina. That light is then flipped, broken into color and contrast, and converted into streams of electricity. By the time it reaches the visual cortex, the original image no longer exists, only a reconstruction your brain believes makes sense. This process is not limited to sight. The same editing happens with every sense. Sound is not a vibration that exists independently. It is the brain's interpretation of oscillating air pressure. Taste is the perception of molecular signatures. Touch is the decoding of pressure and temperature through nerves. Even time is stitched together, not continuously perceived. Your brain gathers discrete snapshots and smooths them into what feels like an unbroken flow. That's why you don't notice the darkness when you blink, or the split-second gaps between moments. This reconstructed model is so convincing that you rarely question it. But illusions expose its limits. A mirage can make heat shimmer like water. A phantom limb can make someone feel pain in a leg that no longer exists. Optical illusions force your eyes to see motion where there is none. All of this shows that the world you experience is not objective reality. It is a best-guess simulation that evolution built for survival, not truth. Philosopher Donald Hoffman calls this the user interface theory of perception. Just as icons on a computer desktop hide the code that runs them, your senses hide the real structure of the universe. They show you symbols that are useful, not accurate. What you think of as the world is really your mind's interface, streamlined, simplified, and full of shortcuts. At this level, the unsettling realization is that you never truly see the world. You only ever see your brain's version of it. The fabric of belief. Once perception builds your personal version of the world, belief shapes what that world means. At this level, reality is not simply seen. It is interpreted, negotiated, and collectively agreed upon. Humans live inside vast systems of shared concepts that have no physical existence yet determine almost every part of life. Take money. In its physical form, it is paper, metal, or digital code. None of these things have any real power. What gives money force is the shared conviction that it has value. Because billions of people believe it, that belief becomes self-sustaining. It decides who eats, who travels, who rules, and who obeys. The same is true for nations. Look at the Earth from space and you see no borders. Yet down here, those invisible lines divide lives, create identities, and determine fates. They are not properties of the planet. They are properties of belief. Morality, too, is woven from this fabric. What one society calls virtue, another may condemn. Practices viewed as sacred in one culture may be taboo in another. Over generations, those interpretations evolve, dissolve, and reform. They are human inventions, systems of meaning that organize behavior, loyalty, and purpose. The anthropologist Clifford Geertz described these networks as webs of significance that we both spin and are caught within. Every story, every institution, every law is a thread in that web. Because belief builds worlds, it can also fracture them. When two collective realities collide, religions, ideologies, or worldviews, the result can be conflict. Each group inhabits its own version of what is real, and when those worlds refuse to overlap, societies unravel. The deeper lesson of this level is that belief is not a decoration added to reality. It is one of its architects. At the realm of belief, truth is consensus, and reality is something we construct together, not something that exists on its own. The programmed dimension. If belief can create realities, then this level asks an even more radical question. What if reality itself is an illusion created by something beyond our perception? The simulation hypothesis proposes that what we call the universe could be an artificial construct, an immense digital model running on some advanced substrate. Philosophers and physicists such as Nick Bostrom argue that if it is possible for intelligent civilizations to create simulated worlds indistinguishable from reality, then the probability that we are inside one is extraordinarily high. The reasoning is simple. A single base reality could produce countless simulations, each populated with conscious beings who believe they are real. Statistically, we would almost certainly be in one of those copies, not the original. Imagine that everything you experience, sight, emotion, memory, is information being rendered in real time. Physical laws like gravity or electromagnetism would be the system's underlying code, ensuring that the simulation behaves consistently. From within, there would be no way to detect the machinery running it. Every glitch could be dismissed as chance. Every inconsistency could be patched. Just as a character in a video game cannot see the console that generates their world, we may be unable to perceive anything beyond our own boundaries. Not everyone interprets this literally. Some treat the simulation idea as a metaphor for the layered nature of existence. Reality behaves as if it is coded. Patterns emerge, complexity grows from simple rules, and systems self-organize. According to hidden logic, whether or not we inhabit an actual computer program, the insight remains powerful. What appears solid and fundamental may be a surface, a projection, a user interface of a deeper process we cannot access. At this level, reality ceases to be ultimate. It becomes recursive, a copy of a copy, an infinite loop of worlds within worlds. The simulation layer suggests that what we call real may be nothing more than the rendered face of something we will never see. The divine matrix. At this level, rational explanation gives way to direct experience. Mystical traditions across cultures, Hinduism, Buddhism, Gnosticism, Sufism, and others, have long described the visible world as an illusion, a veil that hides a deeper unity. Hindu philosophy calls it Maya, the great cosmic illusion that convinces beings of separation. Buddhism names it samsara, the endless cycle of appearances mistaken for truth. Gnostic thought speaks of the material world as a false layer, concealing divine origin. Across time and geography, the message remains consistent. What we see is not what is ultimately real. Mystical reality is encountered, not reasoned. Practitioners who reach altered states through meditation, prayer, or psychedelics often report a dissolution of boundaries. The self melts into everything, and everything becomes one. The air, the floor, the body, and the thought that observes them are all part of the same continuous field. There is no inside or outside, no subject or object, only an indivisible whole that feels more vivid than ordinary perception. The writer Aldous Huxley called this condition the mind at large, an expanded awareness unfiltered by the narrow limits of the human brain. Neuroscience provides a tentative bridge to this description. Studies on psychedelics and deep meditation show the temporary quieting of the brain's default mode network, the region responsible for maintaining the sense of a separate self. When it relaxes, the rigid boundary between me and world fades, giving rise to a direct perception of unity. Whether this is a neurological illusion or a glimpse of ultimate reality remains an open question. At this level, the paradox is profound. Mystical states feel more real than everyday life, more complete, more fundamental, yet they erase the very perspective that asks if they are real. The self that would measure truth disappears. What remains is pure being, awareness without a center, existence without division. In the mystical reality, you do not observe the world. You are the world observing itself, the collective world. This is the level that most people never question, the ordinary world of shared experiences, physical objects, and predictable routines. It is the surface layer, the version of reality we collectively agree upon without thinking. You wake up, see the same room as yesterday, drink water that tastes the same, walk down streets that remain where you left them. Tables are solid, time seems to move forward, and pain feels undeniably real. This is consensus reality, the world built on mutual agreement between billions of human nervous systems. Consensus reality feels self-evident, but that stability is an illusion held together by fragile coordination. Our senses, which define this level, are unreliable translators. Optical illusions prove that sight can be tricked. Hallucinations show that the brain can generate worlds without input. Even color blindness reveals that two people standing side by side can live in subtly different sensory realities. Despite that, language and culture smooth over those differences. Through communication, we construct a consistent world and agree to treat it as objective. This agreement creates the stage set of existence. We behave as though objects are fixed and continuous, yet physics tells us that matter is mostly empty space, that nothing is truly still, and that stability is temporary. The feeling of solidity is not evidence of truth. It is a shared hallucination calibrated for survival. Consensus reality functions because we need it to, not because it reflects what actually is. The value of this level lies in its practicality. It gives structure to daily life, allowing us to cooperate, build, and survive. But it is also the most deceptive, because it convinces us that what we see is all there is. Beneath this familiar surface waits the vast complexity of deeper levels, realities that break every assumption this one depends on. At the level of consensus reality, the world is not truly solid. It is a collective story we keep telling ourselves to make sense of the infinite. The quantum veil. When science examines the familiar world of consensus reality, it exposes how unstable that world truly is. At this level, the microscope and the telescope become instruments that both reveal and dismantle the foundations of existence. The deeper science looks, the stranger reality becomes. Begin with matter, the very substance that everything appears to be made of. What feels solid under your hands is mostly nothing. Atoms, the basic units of matter, are not tiny spheres packed together. They are clouds of probability surrounding a nucleus that itself is almost entirely empty. If an atom were scaled up to the size of a football stadium, the nucleus would be a grain of rice at its center, and the electrons would be like distant gnats buzzing near the outer seats. The space in between, the vast majority of the atom, is pure emptiness. You never actually touch anything. What you experience as contact is the electromagnetic resistance between the atoms of your body and the atoms of the object. Time, too, breaks down under scrutiny. To everyday intuition, it flows smoothly from past to future. Yet Einstein's theory of relativity showed that time is flexible. It can stretch and warp depending on gravity or speed. An astronaut orbiting the Earth for 6 months would return ever so slightly younger than their twin who stayed on the ground. This is not a theory. It is an experimentally verified fact. And at the smallest scales, quantum mechanics shatters any remaining certainty. Particles do not occupy fixed positions. They exist as waves of possibility, becoming definite only when measured. Reality, at that level, does not seem to exist independently of observation. The act of measurement helps define what is real. Even more unsettling is quantum entanglement, when two particles become linked so that a change in one instantly affects the other, even if they are separated by light years. At this level, science no longer offers comfort or clarity. It reveals a universe that behaves more like a set of paradoxes than a machine. Matter is emptiness, time is elastic, and observation may create the very events it measures. The closer science looks, the less solid reality becomes. The absolute unknown. This is the final layer, the point where all explanations reach their limit. Beyond this, there are no models, no theories, and no words that can describe what reality truly is. Philosophy, science, and spirituality all arrive here and fall silent. The Tao Te Ching begins with the line, "The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao." In the same way, the moment you try to define ultimate reality, you lose it. Language points toward truth, but can never contain it. At this level, reality becomes ineffable, the mystery behind everything that exists. It is the silence before thought, the stillness beneath movement, the source from which perception, belief, and matter arise. Some call it the void, others call it consciousness itself. It is not a thing that can be found, because you are already inside it. The universe, the observer, and the act of observation are all made of the same indescribable substance. Here, all boundaries vanish completely. There is no separation between knower and known, between reality and illusion. The mind cannot grasp it because the mind is part of it. Every attempt to define it is like drawing a line in water. The image forms for an instant and then disappears. The unknowable is not hidden because it's distant. It's hidden because it's closer than thought. Maybe that's the ultimate insight. Reality cannot be solved like a puzzle because we are the puzzle itself. Every level, from perception to science to mysticism, has been a lens trying to glimpse what cannot be looked at directly. But if the ultimate level of reality is unknowable, what happens to those who refuse to accept that, who try to replace it instead? Across history, certain philosophers and thinkers have gone further than questioning existence. They have imagined a world where humanity itself doesn't belong, and argued it should end. In the next exploration, we uncover every philosopher who wanted the human race erased, and the disturbing logic behind their ideas. Don't miss it.